Darth Vader is one of film history's greatest villains. That's undisputed. There are people that have undoubtedly idolized the likes of Vader, Palpatine, Maul, Malgus, Revan, Vitiate, and more. How do you create an evil character that everyone loves? And what makes them so appealing?
All right, and we're back. X was saying, that's such an impractical building, the Exegol Sith building. I'm like, yeah, no, it's an upside down pyramid.
Yep.
The architects had the drawings upside down.
Yeah, he just walked up. He's like,
with
"You
it."
did it upside down."
Well, let's just go with it.
Well, it's done now.
Yeah, can't take it back. All
Most of the
right.
crew were like, you weren't even here. How can you? Don't be angry. You were supposed to be here. You're the architect.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's one thing that I am very keen on, and I think X and I, we mend really well on this one. is I really want to create a love of villains again in Star Wars. I want people to cry, when one of their favorite Darksiders is unceremoniously killed off, right? Because I want to be able to give you guys the investment into those characters. And I think you really can't just, like, for example, Snoke, we knew nothing about him. And then he was just, like, sliced in half, and it's like, but he had so much potential. And I think, like, we really just didn't get to know anything about him. And I think that's a travesty. Like, I feel like, if you're really going to build something with an evil character, you really got to take them on a journey. You got to take the audience on a journey. I mean, that's what made the prequels freaking amazing. I don't care who says this. Another thing X and I agree on. I don't care what you say. The prequels were brilliant. And the prequels were brilliant because it took us on the journey to Darth Vader. And I thought I love the prequels. I love the stories of the prequels. Everything about it, just because I was fascinated as a little girl with Darth Vader. That was the character I gravitated, not because I'm, I was a 9-year-old Sith, not because of that, but he's just so cool, right? Like, so cool. And as a young little girl,
so
you're
cool
watching that
without anybody knowing what his backstory was.
Yes, right? And it fascinated me, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about this character. And then, several years, 20-some years later, I got the prequels, and I was like so freaking happy. I was like, wait, you're making 3 films about my favorite characters? Sign me on. I'm in for the ride. Yes, perfect.
Friggin' mint. Yeah, I just I kind of blame George Lucas for this, to be honest. But, like, can we, for the love of God, can we just let some evil people be evil? Because after Darth Vader, everybody had to be redeemed, right? Everybody who tells a villain story, they have to be redeemed. They have to come back to the light. The bad guys, like, no. Can we have some bad guys just be bad for the sake of being bad? Is that okay? You know what I mean?
Yes,
you're allowed to have bad people.
That's what makes bad guys. That's what makes good bad guys, though.
I think it's good to say that none of the members of the dark side over here is ever gonna turn good. Can we make a solemn oath right here with everyone being our witness? Like, I want to be bad.
Well, we know Emperor Vitiate.
Baby.
We know Emperor Vitiate is never gonna be good. He is never gonna be good. Irene, welcome, Irene. But yes, I
Good
can
is a
guarantee
point
that.
of view, anyway.
It is a point of view, but you know what? I agree with it. Right? And sitting here, guys, sitting right in front of you are, 4 people who are embodying the voices of these characters who are never going to be good.
Ain't no redemption around here, boy.
Nope.
If you guys were even around, if you guys could even see the bloopers of some of our sessions, woo!
Yeah, for sure.
Woo!
Yeah, for sure. Like honestly, I mean, Darth
But
Nil.
we're really the nicest people ever.
Not me, sweetheart. Not me.
No. And I mean, and two of these four folks are, they're part of a very beloved section of Star Wars that I felt like needed, the spotlight. It needed, like, why haven't we brought in some of the characters from the expanded universe into our films?
I know.
And
Especially when it makes sense. Like Palpatine coming back
It
doesn't
does.
make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
Well, I think Talon was conscripted to actually be in one of the earlier I can't
Yes,
remember which movie it
in
was.
George Lucas's trilogy.
George Lucas
Sequel
is
trilogy.
Yeah,
and had
exactly.
her. Yeah.
But they took it. Why?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because Disney would have had to change. If George Lucas would have done his trilogy, like he himself, I even think George Lucas would have changed Darth Talon.
She's kind of a sex kitten.
She is.
Yeah.
And I think that
And once you started working
even for
in-
George Lucas, she's a bit much. I think George Lucas himself would have dumbed her down a little bit in that sense, in that regard.
Yeah, she's hypersexualized and extremely violent. Like
Yes.
two things Disney could never do right.
Could
first
never
off.
do.
Yeah.
No. Right, but but what I'm saying to you is, even if Disney wasn't even in the picture, that if it was George Lucas executing his sequel trilogy, he would have dumbed her down a little bit in that regard. Not in the badassery, right? Like, she'd still be badass, but she wouldn't be like, half naked, right? So, and I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is George Lucas.
I don't know though. Look at
You
Padme.
think?
Because the thing is,
That girl shows a lot of skin in that.
Yeah, but you can't go.
I
I'm
wouldn't
sorry,
mind-
but
I
you
wouldn't mind
cannot
just
compare Padme to Darth Talon.
I'm talking about costumes, okay?
And let's not forget Leia's little
Leia, slave
Jabba
bikini.
Hutt
Okay,
bikini.
I
Oh
mean,
my
like,
gosh.
honestly, if we even had just Darth Talon as a cameo or like a bodyguard where she's just as she just is quiet, literally just pulls out her blade every once in a while, does her thing, and then just back to soldier mode, I'd be fine too. Just it would confirm where she would be close to the story that George Lucas had envisioned,
Yeah.
And when they pulled her out, I was just like, I was literally looking at the screen for something red to appear, just anything,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, George did get to execute that trilogy treatment, that sequel trilogy treatment, was written a long time before the sale of Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had that in his arsenal for a long time. And he did get to execute the story of that treatment in the Clone Wars, because the first part of that wasn't, it was supposed to be Darth Talon, yes, but it was also supposed to be Darth Maul.
Yeah.
And
Just the thought of those two together.
oh my god,
Oh.
right? Right, yes,
It has you seeing red.
yes, and I think but George Lucas did get to execute that as part of the Clone Wars. He just did. What he said was, I don't want to change Darth Talon from what she is in the EU. He changed his mind about that, and he then replaced her with Savage Opress, and that storyline was played out in the Clone Wars, and we saw Darth Maul return, and he was like Spider-Bot for a while. I don't know what was going on there, but and he was but he came back, and he had his apprentice was his brother instead of Darth Talon. So George did get to execute a lot of that treatment in the Clone Wars.
I didn't like Arachno Mall. I'm just gonna go on record saying I didn't like Arachno
it
Mall.
was weird. It
It
was
was weird. Just give him, bot legs. We don't need 8. 8 was too many.
Yeah, call Thundercat from Book of Boba Fett and slap some, mods on him. Or oh god.
It took away
Irene
his
has murderous
it took away
tendencies.
his- I felt like it took away his evil, and it just made him seem silly.
Yeah. It did. And I mean, like I said, George is brilliant, right? And everybody loves George, but George also made a lot of mistakes.
Yep.
Okay.
We're human.
So we're, you know,
How horrible for him to have been human.
I know, right? But you know, the story of the One Sith is so. I mean, for anybody that's ever dove into those books of the expanded universe, I mean, the story of the One Sith is really great, just because I felt like the One Sith, which the leader of One Sith was Darth Krayt, until Darth Vader killed him and took the throne, because that's what Sith do, right? Yes.
Let's go, Darth Bane.
Yes, but you know, their premise was they wanted to create an entire army of Sith around them. They wanted it to be a kingdom, if you will, and they wanted it to be, you know, large and in charge, right? And so that premise was so. I mean, it just makes sense that with what Darth Talon and Darth Nil and Darth Maladi, you know, what they believe in and what their structure has been and what, you know, what they want for the Sith Empire aligns so, like, eye to eye with the way that Emperor Vitiate ruled, you know, his Sith Empire 5,000 years before, you know, which was, you know, I am your one king, and you shall bow down. And so I feel like that.
But what's the problem with Sith? What's the problem with Sith? This is why Darth Bane is base as hell, man. He was like, here's the problem with Sith. If you group them together, they will. Three weak ones will get together and kill one strong one. We got to get rid of that. We got to make the Sith great again.
Right? So, where's Tyler when you need him?
I know.
But yes, I mean, and that's you know, that's the story of Darth Bane, of why Darth Bane put in and instituted the rule of two, right? Which we are very familiar with. But, you know, personally, I miss the big lightsaber fights.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
You know, and
so
the
perfect,
Old Republic was
perfect trilogy. Have all that leads up to why Darth Bane created the rule of two.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect, right?
Glorious.
Glorious. We're doing it. so
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I think that's you know, that's a very, very, very interesting thing. But also just, you know, and I said this before, like, of all the people that could come back from death, right? I mean, you know, it's just logical that it's Emperor Vitiate, because he's he's tenacious little motherfucker. I'm just gonna say it.
Let's be honest.
Yes, he's
on
worse.
steroids.
Yeah.
He's worse, you know, and
Yeah.
he just has so much willpower. You know, survival. He just looks at death and goes, "Fuck you," right? Just like, I'm not gonna do it.
Spicy, Maria.
I know, spicy take. And you know, I love that about him, and just the fact that, you know, then you have this elite group of Sith that have all been hiding, you know, hiding in the wings and hiding in the outer rim and the unknown regions of the galaxy, and you know, they've just been amassing people, just. You know, and Darth Nil killing Darth Krayt and having that kind of play out. And
I don't know what to do with myself. I have no master.
I know, right? Which plays a little bit, because, you know, that's something that you guys.
Well, you look
see.
impressionable. Hello.
I'll take you. Right? And so, you know, that's one thing that'll also play out is the rivalry within the One Sith. We get to see that, because that actually, exactly what X was saying, that actually does happen. The Sith are constantly, you know, fighting for power.
In
and
flux, yeah.
I know, yes. And so to have Darth Talon go, "Motherfucker, you killed my master," you know, with Darth Nil, and they just have this very tumultuous, very contentious.
That's like the one thing I had going for me, man.
You took it away. How dare you?
Yes, and that's so much. That is so much her character, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, don't worry. That is not none of the voices you hear this are in the movie. Just to make
Yeah,
that
no,
clear.
this is not screen accurate.
This
This
is
is
not what's
not.
going
Not
to be
screen accurate. Right, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Chris would have a time trying to freaking mix this and be like,
Yes, King. So absolutely, spent 1,000 years planning a takeover, lasting 18 years and failed. Rule of 2 was dumb. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Palpatine murphed that whole thing up. I'm
it
just
really
being
was.
honest. He should have seen what was coming, dude, and he didn't.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I
was a
and
creepy old man.
he was a creepy old man. But I love the rivalry between Darth Nil and Darth Talon, and having Darth Maladi kind of be in between that too, where there's a little something between Darth Maladi and Darth Nil that's Sith. They got
Old
a
school
lot of
Sith,
passion.
baby.
They got
I'll be
a
right
lot of
back.
passion.
The drama is high school drama, like you steal my boyfriend, I'm gonna deal with your boyfriend. I'm gonna have
Listen, Star Wars is a soap opera. It's a soap
It is
opera,
very
right? I want to go back to that.
God, it really is. Because I'm pretty sure it's like the person that we thought was dead, he's come back. Dun dun dun.
Right.
That's very soap opera.
Very
It was
soap
like
opera.
that. It's like that even in the games, especially like SWTOR. You beat Vitiate, Valkorian, and every time you beat them, you're like we beat him. Is he actually dead? I don't know. we think so.
Yeah.
So as far as we know, he's dead. We think he's gone. Maybe.
So he's really been hiding in the mountains somewhere, recovering to come back.
Exactly.
It's true.
And that's what the best villains do. They're like, oh God, he's not actually dead. He's back and he's better than ever.
Yeah, for sure.
He's really pissed off.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, the one Sith, they really embody the centrifuge of alien races, right?
Mm-hmm.
Darth Talon is a Twi'lek, and a red one at that, which is a very rare coloring. And then you have Darth Nil, who is a Nagai, very cool looking. I mean, Darth Nil is very cool looking, and master of daggers and kind of like super stealthy and like that kind of stuff, and Darth Maladi is a Deveronian. So you get to see a lot of those alien races, which is just so familiar in the Star Wars world, and that's what we want to see. We want to see all those things.
Yeah.
That's what makes it Star Wars and feel like Star Wars for us. So, and then Alien, Sharon over here. Alien is a lesser known character. A lot of people don't spend a lot of time in the comics. That's a very unique fandom niche.
Yeah.
Right. To then be able to take that character and flesh her out. I mean, what has that experience been like for you? I mean, I know that you've read some of the like the synopsis of the stuff around her and getting to know her and your research.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I did was get my hands on those issues of the 2020 series so that I could just ingest everything I could. And I just fell in love with her more and more because what an amazing backstory she has.
Yep.
She is 100% Imperial, whether it's the Empire or the First Order. That's her life.
Yep.
And those darn rebels and their prick of a princess went and ripped her family apart, blew up her mentor.
Yes.
We'll go there, Sharon.
She doesn't
And
like
she
Leia, if anybody's
is-
trying to figure out what that means.
PO'd.
She's slightly beyond.
Well,
Yeah,
I
the
guess we can agree
rebellion
that the immersion
not-
is real.
Yeah.
So, you ingest all of that, and then you've got to make a two-dimensional drawing into a three-dimensional person with that kind of depth. So you've got all of those emotions that all you get are, typewritten words. And, I never felt like, okay, I've got to become alien, but it just happened. Sorry, guys.
I now realize when Sharon does that laugh, oh my gosh, this is where it's coming from.
She is pissed the fuck off.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Not a
for
happy
sure.
camper.
Not a
Those
happy camper.
Friggin' cinnamon buns ruined my
Cinnamon
future.
buns.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, no, yeah. And she gets to, one of the things is we get to see her be a person who's just constantly with like a chip on her shoulder, she's always got something to prove. And she feels like she always has something to prove.
Well, that's what it is. She's really she is so incredibly insecure because her parents were ripped away from her. Her mentor was ripped away from her. She's always got to prove herself to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And
who was her mentor?
Grand Moff Tarkin, of course.
Of course. All right. So,
His foul stench could be smelled.
Yes, you know what I mean? Like, he's not for anything. And the thing about Tarkin was also he didn't, he kind of pinned all of his little like apprentices against each other, and he did not think Elian was the one that would rise above it and come out alive out of that. He really
and I think she knew it, which is why she decided, I'm not just going to do what he tells me. I'm going to take care of the rest of them too.
Yes, and she killed everybody. She kills all of them.
Those are some seriously greasy rungs you got to climb to get up in
kill you all.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those, and that tenacity, I think, is something that's just absolutely entices Vitiate to pick her. And for the first time in her life, she was picked.
We giving away too much?
So.
Maybe. But I mean, honestly, like I have had such a joy watching Sharon do her piece every time she comes up on the roll, because it's just like, she's like, because you have a very sweet demeanor, and it's like, oh, it was funny, and then all of a sudden, wah! And I'm like,
yes.
She gets Wicked Witch.
Bow down, right?
Quick.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, bow down.
But it's not even just that. Like she has a serious face on, and she's just like really yelling at like the anger out. Right? I'm just like, I got goosebumps. Anybody want? I don't have a lot of hair, but like it's there.
It's on stands. Yes, absolutely.
It's a total catharsis that's why most actors want the villain roles. Society tells us we got to be nice, we got to get along, we've got to agree, but we're human beings. There's a reason that if it bleeds, it leads in the press, because there is some base need for us to see conflict. So to play the villain is really cathartic.
You cast off the shackles of societal norms and act on your own accord. You can do whatever you want. You have the power to do it, so why
And it's
not
a totally safe place to do it.
Yeah.
Because the pretense is that we're supposed to be mean to each other, and that's always fun.
It's like playing Grand Theft Auto.
Yes. And Vincent, for you, I mean, you always have, from day one, you're like, if it's a Darksider, I'm playing it. That you pretty much gravitate to the dark side, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean,
that.
I think we've touched upon it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've touched upon it. It's just a lot of times those characters are so layered and interesting. And their arcs are so fascinating to me because, without them, we wouldn't have these full stories. We wouldn't have these hero journeys. And so they're fascinating characters to dive into.
Yeah.
And guys, just take note that Vincent sounds like, a swell guy. He sounds gentle, very like, oh,
until he turns his voice on.
And then
you're like, what?
Chill, dog. Chill, man.
Yeah.
Chill, man.
There was a new level of depth to this man. I appreciate. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, that was the biggest part, right? So much fun.
Yeah.
Oh.
Can I ask Vincent? Do you practice that in the shower, like to make sure you've got any echoes going back in? You just to make sure you got enough of that grit on your voice. You like?
I think he just eats gravel.
Yeah. I just gargle nails and
Yeah,
Get
we
punched
actually
in the
we
face.
shared a
Yeah.
dietary plan on that.
You
We were
know-
texting back and forth. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're gonna do like roofing nails this week and then drywall screws.
yeah.
No, I
You're
think that
abusing
makes
your
sense
throat. Good. Okay.
because
Good.
that's why-
Good.
Because that's why Ross sometimes has his coughing fits. He's choking on those gravels and those drywall.
Yeah.
Right?
You gotta
Spitting
find
up,
them.
I'm spitting up pea gravel. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so. And I mean, for you, Josephine, I mean, that seems, I mean, Darth Talon is probably one of the most recognized characters in Star Wars.
Oh God, the pressure.
I know, I know, no pressure.
And dude, her voice, like, you want to talk about a total 180. When you hear Josephine talk and then she gets into character, it's like, where the fuck did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Where is
Yeah.
that?
It's
You
the
got
Emperor
some
talk,
weird
honestly.
psychotic French, like, it's incredible.
Oh,
Yes.
she
Yes.
purrs every line.
It's a purr. Yeah, it's like a psychotic French sex
So
kitten
good.
that's
So
on
good.
like bath salts. That's
I
the
love
only way. Like, yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it. But yes,
Oh, my
so
gosh.
that is, I mean, and one of the things, guys, like, what do you think is why do you think it's so important for us to really make the audience kind of love these characters? What makes it so imperative for the audience to like really find their love of a villain?
I think.
I'm sorry.
Go.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josephine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, the most obvious one is if you don't got a good villain, the
You can't
hero
have a
is
good hero.
pointless. The whole
Yeah.
point of
Yeah.
the whole story is absolutely pointless. It's just kind of like, how awkward would it be if a guy comes in all superhero like, and the dude's just like, all I did was insult, my sister. Like that's not. It's just a little bit
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I agree. It's just
Where are the
awkward.
stakes,
Everybody's like,
right? There's no stakes. There's no risks, right? Yeah, for sure.
exactly, and it's not even just that. If you don't have a good villain that you like, and the concept of like is so relative, because to like someone is either they have to hit your sense of humor or your sense of like evil, because everybody has their own sense of evil. Some people might think like running over a kid on a bicycle is evil enough that it's just like hilarious or whatever, and other people have the kind of concept of mind games on like an office setting and cause drama, and they'd be like and then people like that manifestation. So even as a concept of what good villain is, a good villain is all relative to the kind of evil that you gravitate to, like your sense of sin. And so for me, if a villain doesn't incorporate the epitome of manifestation of like your evil desires, because everybody has them, then it's like a part of them is like, I don't want to be the villain, but I also don't want to be the guy that has to deal with the villain, because there's nothing there that I feel has to deal with me, and so it doesn't engage the story at all. It's just kind of like, cool, dude.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
there's really only 3 ways to make a villain. There's only 3 ways to make a villain. Otherwise, it's going to flop. You either have to fear them, respect them, or love them. Those are the only 3 ways to make a convincing villain. And if you don't care about the villain, you're not really going to care about the hero so much. So you can either make them so bad that you fear them and you want them to die. You can respect them in the way, kind of like a Grand Admiral Thrawn, where they're so intelligent that you can't help but kind of respect their motives. Or you can love them, kind of like I always think about like Darth Vader. Like I love Darth Vader. I mean, you see what he went through. He's the tragic hero that turned to villain, and so you love him that way. So there's 3 different ways to make it, but more than anything, they have to be cool. And that's something that we
Yeah.
talked about where, you know, as Sharon was saying, where you kind of cast off the shackles, you know,
Yep.
everybody can kind of relate to wanting to go a little bit psycho sometimes. And so when you see that with somebody else, you're like, go girl, you be
Yeah.
insane. Like, I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
So-
yeah, for sure. And I agree. I mean, I think that you know, oh, we lost Josephine. She'll come back.
Oh
She'll come back. She's probably refreshing. But
Is she dead or isn't she?
no one's ever really gone, right?
Ugh. You knew what you were doing there.
I did. Look at him. He's like, I just don't. He's in fight
Gotta
mode
crack
now.
the neck.
But yeah, I think you know, to have a really good villain, you know, I mean, where would we be with Luke Skywalker if we didn't have Darth Vader? Would we have loved
Farming moisture.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Would we have loved Luke Skywalker as much as we do if we hadn't had Darth Vader? I don't think so. So you know, the two are very much intertwined, and it's so important to have really good arcs for them. And I think with the dark side, you really get to have because it's the unthinkable stuff, right? Their background stories can be really just. I mean, you guys are all gonna see the legacy trailer that we have for Emperor Vitiate coming, and you know, it's, you know, the utter. You know, you can get really vicious with them, and their backstories can be really, really great. Somehow, Josephine has returned. Yes. Josephine has returned.